At the Art of Greatness Academy, we believe real estate should be made simple, clear, built on trust and education. That's why we built the ROI calculator, a powerful tool designed to do it all. For years, I searched for something online that would fill that gap for my investor and residential clients where we could crunch some numbers, be able to figure out what the ROI is, what the NOI is, and I struggled. So what we did was we built this tool just for you to be able to use in your everyday career so you could help your clients make better decisions about their investments and their residential purchases. So your work is grounded in facts instead of guesswork. Here I present to you the ROI calculator. All right, guys, we're inside the dashboard and inside the LTR calculator for long-term rentals. So here we'll use a real life example, 50 Ed Quig. This is a property that I did sell a few months ago to one of my clients. These are numbers that I actually ran within the calculator and I shared with my clients. So this is a real life example, and we'll put it all in the calculator and I'll walk you guys through how to fill this out. So first we have the property address. We'll do 50 Ed Quig for training. We'll do the purchase price, $1,130,000. Down payment, now depending on what percentage your client's putting down, 5, 10, 15, 20. In this case, we'll put 20%. Your loan life, 30 years. If yours is 25, you can go for 25, 35, 40, depending on where you are in the world and what that loan life actually looks like. The current interest rates in Canada are hovering around 4.25%. Is the property in Ontario, Canada? The reason it asks this is so we can calculate the land transfer taxes for you. And the next question is the property in the city of Toronto? Now, city of Toronto levies its own land transfer tax. So if you hit yes, it will auto calculate the land transfer tax for you for the city of Toronto. Now, if your property is outside of Ontario or Canada, just hit no for both, and then you can manually enter within the legal fees exactly what those taxes would look like or an approximate amount for your clients. So next section is capital required. So legal fees, let's just say $2,000. Potential renovations. These would be improvements that you would make to the property. This would be money that you'd be putting in to either fix the kitchen, to change the floors, to finish the basement, anything that would potentially better the property or that you would take on as a capital expenditure, you would place in the potential renovations. For the current example, we'll hit 0 for now, and then we'll come back to this as we're going through the actual example. Rental main dwelling, one of the things you'll see here, this was a 4-bed upstairs and then 2-bedroom basement. So the main floor rental in this area is $3,500 approximately, and the second dwelling rental is around $2,500, just as an example. There is no third or fourth dwelling, so we'll zero those out. Now, if you have a single dwelling, you can just zero all these out. And if you have more than 4 dwellings as a multiplex, you can just add a little bit more to the third, the fourth, or combine multiples to utilize it. It'll still give you the accurate numbers. Next is our expenses section. Annual property taxes, as you can see here, are $4,864. So we'll go ahead and put $5,000. We'll up it just by a little bit. Monthly insurance, let's say $150 as an example, and then projected annual appreciation. In the Toronto real estate market in the last 45 years, we hover right around 6.8 to 6.9% average. Now, will that happen for the next X amount of years that the client holds the property? Nobody knows. I would actually recommend asking your client, first share with them, here's the average appreciation within the Miami market, the Toronto market, the California market, wherever you may be in the world. You can share that with your clients to say, hey, here's the average appreciation that we've seen historically. Where do you think prices are going? And this is a shot in the dark at times. So I would say as a fair guesstimate, maybe 3%, 3.5%. We always stay conservative instead of over-promising, under-delivering. So we'll go 3% for argument's sake. The clients are planning on holding this for 7, 8 years, so we'll just go 8. And no adjustments based on renovations for the time being. So this is the change in price due to the improvements that you're making in the property. So as an example, if we were to do renovations for $80,000 in this property and increase the value by $180,000, you would put 80 in this section and then 180 in this section. We'll go ahead and hit calculate, and we will maximize this so we can have a better look at everything. Here we have it. We have a bunch of options up top here. We'll go through those in a sec. Up top to the left, we have our property details. So here you'll see the property address, purchase price, down payment, what the actual down payment is exactly. 20% of 1,130,000 will get you 226,000. The mortgage amount, 904,000. Loan life, 30 years is what we had put in. 360 total payments. Interest rate is 4.25%. And what are the monthly payments for that client? $4,447.14. These are your monthly mortgage payments. Here is the property in Ontario. Yes, no for Toronto. And on the top right is where we actually see the down payment come through under the capital requirements. Your land transfer tax get calculated for you in Ontario. In Toronto as well, if you had clicked yes, and then your legal fees that you had manually put in, your potential renovations, and then this adds everything to give you the total capital that that client needs to be able to close the property and purchase the property. So this client in this case would need $247,075 in order to be able to close on this ideally. Now there's a couple things here. You'll notice some of these sections are dotted lines and other sections are solid lines. The dotted lines can't actually be changed. They are auto-calculate. Within this area, if you had to put 25% down, you can adjust it within here and do a recalculation. And it will auto-update everything. If you just noticed, our down payment went from 226 to 282 due to that. And all your numbers will shift based on that. So for argument's sake, we'll go back to 20 points. Now, below the capital required, we have a section called revenue. That's just the numbers that we put in, what the revenue was for the first, second, third dwelling. As many dwellings as you have, you can pretty much add and put in there. It adds it up. Your total monthly revenues are $6,000. Down below, we have our monthly expenses on the right, which are your mortgage, monthly property taxes, monthly insurance and maintenance. And if you wanted a rainy day fund, I usually get this question, is, hey, what if they need an extra $100? Just turn that into $250. That gives them $1,200 extra for the year and just adds their expenses by a bit. So now our total monthly expenses went up to $5,113, yet our annual mortgage is $53,000, $5,000 property taxes, $3,000 in insurance and maintenance. If you notice, that's just this times 12, and your annual expenses are $61,000. So here down below, what you have is your net operating income or cash flow, which is what you get to take home after all your expenses. If you're cash flow positive, your expenses are lower than your income. So your revenue is higher and you're taking home a little bit of money. If you're cash flow negative, you're paying a little bit of money out of pocket. Now, cash flow isn't necessarily everything, but it is a very important factor in calculating ROI. So annual revenue, $72,000, annual expenses, $61,000, and they're cash flowing positive $10,000 a year and $886 a month, just to give you guys that example. Now, as we go down below to the ROI flex calculator and the hold 4% calculator, this is where you can play with these top two numbers as well as the additional adjustment in sales price. So the first is just actual appreciation that you feel is going to happen for the period of time that they own that property. So we guesstimated about 3% appreciation on an 8-year hold. Now, the actual system will calculate your principal paydown for you. So depending on how long the client holds the property for, if it's for 8 years, your principal paydown based on the down payment and the mortgage amount and the life of the mortgage is $142,000. On this side, it's just a set rate of 5 years. You won't be able to play with this, but it's just to give you an example and a comparison. Your principal paydown is $83,000 across 5 years there. Your appreciation, which is directly based on 3% at 8 years, is $271,200. Now, if we change this to 5 years, what we'll notice is both of these numbers will go down. So we can scroll up and recalculate. go down. Now we're down to 83 and 169 as an example. Cash flow, 53,000. That's kind of brought from the net operating income multiplied by the number of years that the client is holding the property. And then the adjustment renovation, we didn't actually put that in. We didn't put in an adjustment in sale price where you can see comps at times for fix and flips or long-term holds that need renovations to be able to improve the value of the property. So down here, you have your total ROI. Your total ROI is made up of these numbers: your principal paydown, appreciation, and your cash flow. So cash flow isn't everything. A lot of times in different markets, appreciation can carry you much stronger. So for example, in the Toronto Real Estate Board, we've seen mass appreciation over the last 45 years at 7%. So if you bought $1 million property and it went up 7% a year, you're making $70,000 on that property every single year just in appreciation. That's why appreciation ends up being one of the most important factors. Not to say cash flow isn't. You shouldn't be buying properties that are $2,000, $3,000 negative cash flow. That doesn't make sense. But that's where we can use the numbers to explain to a client why the property is such a good decision or such a good purchase. So total ROI, $305,769. Initial investment was $247,000, which is brought from right here up top. And so your final sales price, which kind of adds your appreciation to your original sale price, is $1,299. Your final ROI, total ROI, and your percentage is 123% on your money in 5 years. Your yearly ROI, you're getting 24.75% back in this scenario. Now, the longer you hold, the better it will be. Let's go 9 years, 8 years. We can change that a little bit. We're at 25.21. It didn't make a massive difference, but it's slightly better. But you have a mass amount more appreciation. Maybe the market only shifts 2.5 points. And then you just play with this for your client to say, hey, you know what, on a conservative side, if the market only went up 2.5 points, here's how much money you would gain on your purchase. Now you can go buy stocks, bonds, yields, anything that's out there, but the difference between those investments and this is they don't have leverage. You have the ability to put down 20% here, or 5%, or 10, or 30, depending on where you're buying the property and what the rules are, to be able to get a property that goes up an X percentage and you're leveraging most of that money. Versus all those other commodities require 100% of the purchase price upfront. If you go to the bank and ask them, hey, can I get a loan on this cryptocurrency? It's not happening. Can I get a loan on the S&P 500, which has performed better than most investments? It's still not happening. Real estate happens to be a secure investment, and that's how we utilize the ROI calculator. Now, I'll give you guys another example, and we'll actually put in the potential renovations here, because the reason why my client ended up buying this property wasn't just because it ended up cash flowing positive, which is a fact, it does cash flow positive, but they bought it because 5 doors down, the same property that was slightly renovated sold for $1,310,000. So $180,000 difference. So one of the things we calculated was, well, if we did improvements in this property for $80,000, let's just say hypothetically speaking, you would improve the value by 180. So that is an exact example of where we can use those numbers and plug them in to come up with the ideal ROI or the approximate ROI of 24.2%. And these are the types of numbers you want to be looking for. If you're getting 5% ROI, 6% ROI, it's not great on your money, especially when you're leveraging so much, right? You have so much at risk there. You want to be ideally in that 15, 18, 20 plus range. If you can get to the 20 plus range, it's an absolutely fantastic investment. Now, a couple things up here. One thing you can do is save the actual report. So anytime you do a report, you can save the report and it will save to your report section automatically. It says LTR report saved, and then you can go back to it and adjust it as you wish. The other thing you can do is download the report. by downloading it, you get a PDF that gives you all the information for your clients along with your name and details down below. We haven't tried to brand it to try to sell our brand to your clients. The goal is really to help you have real facts-based conversations. And instead of saying, hey, I think this property is a great deal, now you can go to your clients and say, hey, this property is gonna make 23% ROI across 5 years. The numbers make sense. And then there's no real emotions that play into that decision. Now, for residential purchases, it's a little bit different because residents generally will care a little bit more about location, neighborhood, the square footage, the layout versus the ROI. However, you can still use it for your clients, and the way you would is you would just flatten out all your expenses. So as an example, if you just wanted to show a client, well, hey, you're purchasing this house, instead of just using a mortgage calculator, you can still use this, and you can pull up one of your old reports and click on that, and all you're doing is putting in their annual property tax. You're gonna put in their monthly maintenance and expenses. And you can add that up, right? Let's say the client was living there and their monthly bills were going to be $700 as an example. And then their annual property tax is the same. And that's just what it's costing them to live there. Then what we can do is recalculate it. And one of the other things that we can do is your total monthly expenses, we can just flatten them out to say, because there's no real cash flow there, right? You're still paying $5563.81 every single month. So when we calculate that, now we should have a flat cash flow. It just updated, 5563.81. So we don't have any cash flow here. And then when we go down and you're speaking to someone that's still purchasing this property, and even without the improvements, let's eliminate that. Let's say they're not interested in the improvements at all. Does this property make sense for you holding just based on appreciation and principal pay down? So your ROI is no longer, now it gave you 32 cents here, but your appreciation is 226,000 still across that same period of time. Your principal pay down is 142,000 there. So now your ROI is 18% instead of 20 something. This is still a great property to purchase for the clients to be able to hold long-term because of natural appreciation that we've seen in the market over the last X amount of years or decades, and being able to have facts-based conversations. If you guys have any questions, guys, post them down below and I'll help answer any of those questions in future videos, or I'll jump in and comment on those questions as well. Now, the other thing that I wanted to show you guys was, well, the reports. We'll just show you the one that we saved. We have EdQuig 3 minutes ago. Now we can go back in and edit it, and we have all that information that we put in there. Everything that we had in the past is all here. So it makes it easy for you to refer back to. Now, the second part to this is the STR short-term rental calculator. For those of you that are working with clients to find Airbnb properties, verbal properties, just a short-term rent under 28 days in most places, this is a fantastic tool, and it will really help you get a great gauge as to figuring out what that occupancy is, what the average daily rate is, and how much money they'll make based on those two numbers. So the overall layout of this is the exact same. So we'll just type in 123 Banana Street. Shout out to Tom Ferry there. 800,000 as a purchase price, let's just say. And let's say you're putting in 20% down. Your loan life is 30 years, 4.25%. It's in Ontario. It's not in Toronto. AOG stress-free property management. That is Art of Greatness Property Management. If you guys are interested, you're welcome to reach out. We have a property management company where we help clients maximize revenue on their short-term rentals. We help from the design aspect, the amenities, the layout of the listings, pricing strategies, and we run like for any property that we actually run, we rank in the top 1% of all comparables of that property in that same city. So we have a really good track record on doing that. We charge a 20% rate, 20% on top line revenue. So if you hit yes, they'll auto deduct 20% off top line revenue where they can have their property managed by us. I'm gonna hit no for now just to show you the difference. Legal fees, we'll just put in $2,000 for attorney fees. Potential renovation and furniture, you can actually build that in to say, hey, it'll cost about $20,000 to set up the property. You can build it in. And here, we'll put 10,000. Let's say it's a smaller property there. Occupancy rate, and this is where we use some of the not proprietary, but some of the tools that are available to us online and some of the ones that you can look at. AirDNA is a very popular one where you can figure out the average occupancy of the city, the area, and then we'll pull up exact comps to the property to find out how much those properties are averaging and then their average daily rate. So as an example, we're doing about 60% occupancy and about a $400 average daily rate in one of our properties. And our monthly insurance or maintenance fees are, let's just say, $350. And then monthly utility bills, another $300. And then your rainy day fund, another $100, any expenses that you have. Let's say this property has $4,000 in property taxes, your projected annual appreciation, and the number of years that you're holding. Adjustments based on renovations, same kind of idea as we pointed to last time. So the only two major differences here are your occupancy rate and your average daily rate, which is how much on average will that property earn per night. So, and you can pull up comps on Airbnb, AirDNA, AirBTix. There's loads of options out there. We do a ton of research for our clients to actually come up with realistic estimates. We have properties that are yielding over $200,000 in certain places. We have properties that are yielding $100,000. And some of our comps are only doing 60, 65. So it is possible to surpass even the numbers that some of the properties are doing within those areas by using the right strategies. Now, we'll go down, we'll hit calculate. And this is just us throwing numbers in as an example, right? So the overall look of this is very similar to the look of the last one. So this is all standard that we saw. Just the only difference is AOG, stress-free property management. And then based on the numbers here, it gives you the occupancy rate, average daily rate. And the way we get to this number is occupancy rate multiplied by 365. So the number of days that you'll actually be occupied multiplied by the average daily rate gives you the annual revenue of $87,600. We have a property that's performing exactly that. And I can actually put in the exact purchase price. It was $1,106,000 for that property that the client had purchased. It was not in the city of Toronto, so we only had provincial land transfer tax. And this will kind of give us an idea of what the numbers look like on this specific property. And we're actually doing 440 to be exact. We're 94,000, but close enough. This is where you have your monthly mortgage, property taxes, and your total monthly expenses. And here you have your total annual expenses and then your average net operating income. And this is why Airbnb makes sense for so many people. Even if you were to put in AOG stress-free property management and we recalculate, you're still cash flowing $1,000 after paying 20% for someone to manage. Now, the other thing that you have to realize is self-run properties on average make substantially less than professionally run properties, unless you've spent a lot of time on the Airbnb side and you understand how to run it and you've done the research and you've spent hundreds of hours going down the rabbit hole. It's very hard to achieve that number unless you're an absolute professional. Most people that are running these properties will be around $60,000 to $70,000. So they're leaving quite a bit on the table. On average, when we take over a property that's self-managed, we increase revenue by between 30 and 50%. We increase our average daily rate by about 20 to 30%. And that's a fact. We took over a property that did 20,000 last year, and we're already at 66,000 this year on the exact same property. So there are ways to increase revenue and to build that out. So just keep that in mind. So once again, the only difference is in this calculator from the first calculator are occupancy rate and average daily rate along with the AOG stress-free management, which adds 20% expenses. And then you can scroll down and see if this investment makes sense. What's it yielding? What are the adjustments? What's the actual ROI? Those are the main numbers, right? Like the numbers you're looking for, to most importantly, cash flow, ROI. And the one most important one is ROI. It's not just cash flow. Cash flow is very important, don't get me wrong. But when you combine all of the above, the principal pay down, the appreciation, and the cash flow, that's where you get that big bulk of that number where you can say to your client, hey, this investment makes sense, this one doesn't. We had an example that came in one of our seminars a few weeks ago where a client was bleeding $2,500 a month. He's losing 30 grand a year. His property's barely appreciating anything. Even if it went up 3 points a year, it doesn't make sense for him to keep because what it's costing him is as much as it's going up. So your ROI is almost nothing. It's only the principal pay down at that point in time, which principal pay down alone is not enough. That's why we don't recommend buying heavily negative cash flowing properties. At times you may carry a property that you're paying out of pocket a few $100s, but at the same time, does that make an ideal investment? You really have to look at the numbers. You really have to look at the history and the data. And the ideal scenario here is for you to be able to take this and share it with your clients to help them make decisions. Now you are facts-based. Instead of saying to your client, hey guys, this is a great property, I think it'll make you lots of money, say, hey, I ran the numbers on it, I ran the comps, the rentals show that the single dwelling yields $3,500, the basement yields $2,500, and when we put in those numbers, here's what we get. Have a look. The ROI looks fantastic. Is this an investment you may want to make? Instead of a selling tool, use this as an education tool to be able to help your clients have better conversations. And with that, one last thing that I want to share is that that's what we work on at the Academy. Our goal is to equip you with the right tools, the right repertoire, the right conversations to be able to overcome the objections, to be able to build trust with your clients. Stop coming from a sales mentality, come from an education mentality, a trust mentality. When you're educating your clients, guess what? Most people out there, they're not doing it. Most people out there are out there for the commission check. That's all they want. If you change that mindset and are focused on excellence and giving them the facts, the data, the information that nobody else is sharing with them, you will do more deals. You will build more trust. You will get more referrals, back-to-back clients. And that's the ideal scenario of helping investors. Investors don't just buy one property. If you're only doing residential, that's where you kind of need to open your eyes and say, hey, residential only yields a client purchasing or selling every 5 to 7 years. So when I knock on the door and ask the question, have you had any thoughts of selling? I really need to get lucky. Instead of doing that, start working on your repertoire of how to have conversations and build trust based on the education you're providing them. And one of the things that we really focus on is sharpening the axe. Instead of just trying to chop down the wood, make more calls, knock more doors, have better conversations, have more tools at your disposal that will help you build that trust and sell more. Without further ado, I'm Fahad Farhat, founder of the Art of Greatness Academy. Would love to hear your comments, feedback, thoughts about this, the investment calculator. And if you guys want to access it, you can purchase it down below for an absolutely incredible price. And what value do you put on being able to build trust with your clients? A single commission check can be $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, $25,000, just depending on where you are. It will more than pay for itself. So you do you and invest in your future. Thank you.